Hi, HR nerds. This is Nicole Dessain. Welcome to Talent Tales, the show where I interview leaders who have brought design thinking to their talent and HR practices. In today's episode, we have a special guest on the show. I'm joined by Mercedes Sullivan, who is the Executive Vice President, People, Culture, and Communications at McKinsey Companies. Welcome, Mercedes.
Thank you for having me here. And you had me at nerds, so I'm
I
ready.
know. Well, tell me more about that. Who are you and what's your story?
uh, well, besides my title, which I always think is strange, sometimes I forget to use it because I'm Mexican, and one of the things coming to this country, to America, is people introduce themselves with their title so often, and for us, it's so much later. So I'm always happy when someone mentions it before me because I remember that I have a job. But yeah, I am a passionate, nerdy Latina that has been in HR for about 13, 14 years. And but my entire career has been about performance. I came to the US on a tennis scholarship. I was an athlete and a tennis player, and to me, the three things have always been really fascinating. Number one, the human experience. How do you live different than me, and how do we view the same thing with a complete different outcome? That's always been crazy. The second thing is purpose. What actually makes you give something meaning that you actually want to act on it? Because we all have the same information. What makes you connect to something versus somebody else? And then that performance piece. So once you have that, how do you organize yourself as an individual? How do you organize the work, or how you train or whatever to hit those goals continuously? And so, yeah, all of that has been on the back of my mind as an athlete and growing up, traveling the world. So when I started working, I'm like, I want to know how to set systems and structures so that we can best perform. And yeah, I mean, my career has been kind of like threefold. I was a consultant for a while. Then I did social movement consulting. So from financial services consulting to social movement consulting. How do you get a group of people to move? And then the balance has been HR.
I already have so many questions.
Me
First of
too.
all, how did you get from a pro tennis player to consulting?
So,
What made you think
yeah,
about
uh,
that connection?
I was playing growing up in Mexico. I was a professional athlete. I taught myself high school in Mexico because I was traveling the world playing junior tennis. Then I got a scholarship to Boston College. I tried to become a nun. Sounds like I was too radical. So I switched my theology and philosophy degrees for international studies. And from there, I just got a job. I'm like, so who's going to hire me? And to be honest, I mean, I got hired to CEB, now Gardner, and I really loved it. And I ended up being the head of financial services consulting there. And what was just interesting to me is just how things connect and how do things work. Like you do something here and you break things over here, and how do people, with the mess that we are and the mess of everything around us, how do we make money? So that's how I ended up there. After that consulting for a while, I had like a little existential crisis, which apparently I have every few years. And I'm like, I'm selling my soul to the devil. Let me do consulting for nonprofits and government organizations. So I did that, and then I got laid off. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe the devil is not so bad. He pays me money. And then I was very purposeful, and I ended up at TIAA. So about 16,000 people, 24 countries. And that's where I try to get into HR. But after like 13 rejections, I'm like, fine, you win. I started from scratch my career, and I moved to IT actually with a little flip phone, no idea, restarted my career. And that's where I started getting introduced to design thinking and systems thinking. So it was the best thing that ever happened to me to restart. There, I moved sideways to HR, where the majority of my experience was as PMO. So I was the head of the PMO, deploying, changing from projects to products, all of the same thinking and all the fun stuff that I'm sure we'll talk about. And now, 10 months ago, I moved into this smaller organization, about 500 people, and this blue collar, completely different context, but still so much opportunity to use the same thinking just in really different ways. So
Wow.
excited to you. Yeah.
I love a good windy resume. I think we need more people like that in HR because we can learn, and as a design thinker, I believe we can learn from different experiences and backgrounds. That brings me to just the other follow-up question because I too am an immigrant in this country and the US. And when you mentioned that in the US we introduce ourselves through our title first, and in Mexico you start with other things first. What do you start off in Mexico with to when you meet somebody?
I mean, like I was telling people, we're human beings, not human doings. So like, oh, I am from this. Normally, where you're from, like I'm from this town, or I like this
Mm,
type of food, or I'm very funny, or like I'm cheeky. But usually, it involves some sort of nickname that someone gives you. So I was thinking about this because I
mm,
was watching a group of Americans introduce somebody else to somebody, or just talking about them, and
mm,
they identify them with like their job, or like it's a man and he's from here. And then
mhm.
I heard a group of Latinos, and I know I'm generalizing, but it made me laugh. And they just met somebody and they were introducing them. And the first thing is that they made some funny comment, and then they give the person a nickname, like a random, not offensive, just a nickname.
Yeah.
And they start talking about how he seems like really chill. And it's very funny, like identifying them as the human. And
It's
I've
so
never gotten over
interesting.
that here because I'm always like, hey, can I give you a nickname? They're like, no, I just met you.
Weirdo.
Exactly. Don't hug me. Don't kiss me. Stay in your lane, little lady. Okay,
That is
American,
so
you win.
interesting. Well, and I wanted to dive into it a little bit more because as we get into human-centered design, I think we need to remember that what we're designing for is humans, and especially in human resources. And I think we do need to take a little bit of time to get to know the other person as a human. So thank you for taking that detour with me. I appreciate it. And then my next question is what one of the favorite questions for our audience usually. So they love this question. What is your superpower? And I think you have a little show and tell to show us.
Yeah, my superpower is not drawing, clearly. It's showing some circles. So I think for me is I ended up studying international studies. And since I was
Mm,
little, I always looked at the bigger picture and context and the ecosystem around it so that I
mm,
can connect the heart of each person to their context where they are. I don't know if
wow.
it's because I had to travel and reinvent myself. I lived in 3 countries, and my grandparents were refugees, so I had to reinvent my identity many times. That I
Mm-hmm.
always, what are you identifying yourself with in this context? What are the things around you locally and globally? And just putting the context of local solutions with a global context around. So
Mm,
going from the
love
big to the
that.
small. I think I do that relatively well in my head, at least. When it comes from my head to like explaining it to others, maybe not as good,
But
but it sounds awesome here.
it does. And, maybe it needs to be more in the heart than in the head anyways. Maybe we are over analyzing
Yes.
sometimes. So I think that's a wonderful superpower.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's the heart in the system. Like, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we're human. I was reading someone's post yesterday about how your identity with work, and that's an example, right? So
Mm,
you lose your job, then you're nobody if you lost your job. And I'm like,
mm,
but we wouldn't have this anxiety if we didn't connect with the job. So going back to that design thinking, it's not just how do you design for the human, but to your point, how to understand what makes people feel seen and who they are. And that's
mm,
so important to understand cross-culturally because
mm-hmm.
it will vary. I made a lot of mistakes assuming for people. It's like assuming a
Yes.
love language. And then I'm like giving words of affirmations, and they're like, I want acts of services, lady. Stop it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? We make so many assumptions um, about everything and everybody, right? So, and I think design thinking helps us a little bit peel the onion. So let's get into that a little bit. Why and how did you get started with using design thinking in an HR context inside your organization?
Yeah, I love this question because as I moved to the PMO from IT and I started thinking about, we were transforming how we do retirement services. And they were doing design thinking to understand what's a product and then form agile teams. I'm like, that's cool. Why don't we do that in HR with like stuff that we do? And so when I ended up owning the PMO and I inherited, so the program management office, I
Hmm.
inherited 144 projects I was like, that's
Ooh.
crazy. I'm like, wait, no. And the projects that begin and end, and then I'm like, who's maintaining this? And of course, then we have the same project 2 years later.
Mm,
So I knew that I wasn't great at this design thinking, but I hired people on my team that were great at understanding my business, uh, understood agile and understood design thinking. But I gave them the pep talk of, I am not a traditionalist. We're going to adapt it to our context. We're going to meet people where they are. We're going to use human words that people understand.
mm, mm-hmm.
But what I want us to do is, test this out. So I moved us from projects to products. So onboard, attract, hire, engage, so on and so forth were our products. And we started with design thinking. What does onboarding look like? Where are personas, journey mapping? And then from there, created a cross-culture, cross-organization group that planned quarterly and delivered incrementally. And that was so much fun. But man, it took a lot of mindset shift and trying to explain to people why this mattered. And the semantics, like, that's not a product. Like, what's a product? I'm like, forget the word, just the concept.
But
But
tell
yeah,
us a little bit about that because that has been popping up recently in the context of employee experience and people as a product, people experience as a product. There seems to be a lot of hype around that lately.
yeah.
So maybe you can explain to us a little bit why you decided to call them products. And when you say onboarding is a product, what does that mean?
Yeah. And thank you for that because it's really important. It's all depending on your context. So whatever I say may not apply at all to other people. So that caveat.
Mm,
But because I brought people from the agile world,
ah,
I was just going with
yeah.
their words. But I noticed that by trying to sell the moments that matter as products, a lot of my leaders within HR had trouble with that. They're like, well, that's a service. I'm like, a thing that we deliver, value. It doesn't matter. Like, a thing. I think what's happening now is that we're looking at when we say product is like the experience as a product versus the operations as a product. It's many things. At the end of the day, I think it really doesn't matter. It's depending on your context. What is the thing that you're trying to solve for? Apply design thinking to that, and then incrementally try to um, continuously improve until you no longer add value. In my really large organization, I thought that starting with the products for onboard attract hire made a lot of sense. In my current organization, it doesn't. In my
Mm,
current organization, I'm applying the design thinking to the actual work because it's smaller
mm-hmm,
and I can hit the enterprise. And I love that because that's really business value add.
mm-hmm.
But if I just started there in my larger organization, given how I couldn't even sell them the concept of this productization, so I was just trying to be like, all right, I'm gonna meet you where you are. I'm trying to make you like do pull-ups, but you've never even been to the gym. So we're gonna start slow. Whereas in
Mm,
this smaller organization, I can just talk about the work and then design around that and then from there put the people and the processes. So
yeah.
it's
So sometimes
confusing.
it's about the packaging, right? Is what I tend to say.
Your context, how mature your organization, I mean,
Hmm.
with my staff now, words like BAU, business as usual, they're like, we don't know what that it's really dependent. The same
Mm,
for agile, right? I started with my epics and features, and they're like, what the heck? So I got rid of all of that, and I just said, we're gonna have plan meetings, we're gonna have design meetings, we're gonna have connect meetings and deliver meetings.
hmm.
So few words. And then
Because
no,
everybody knows what a meeting is.
exactly. So I'm
Yeah.
like epic. I'm like, I still don't know what that means, but meet people where they are and start small. Everything is a hypothesis. I fail like a million times until we find the one, and then it went really fast.
Yeah. Very cool. So what we hinted at some, but maybe you can list them again. What were the barriers that you encountered in bringing design thinking into your organization, and how did you overcome them? A little bit of real talk, whatever
Yeah,
you can
there's
share.
so many. And so I failed in so many ways. This is just a fun question. Because I was trying to do the design, but also productize at once, I was potentially trying to do too many things at once. Don't do that.
Mm,
If you're struggling, pick one thing. When finally I'm like, okay, ironically, I'm trying to big bang this agile transformation. I'm like, oh, I'm not listening to my own advice. So the first one is the mindset shift, the understanding from projects to products and the ongoing maintenance and support and ownership, because that requires a different way of organizing people to deliver. So that took a while. I at first did a lot of explaining and road showing of what that means by theory, and that didn't work. Finally, I picked one small project and we were doing a focus on skills. It was called Skills of the Future. So we were going from jobs to skills.
Mm,
And I picked a person that could be a product owner. And then I gave her a coach. And then from there, we started with someone doing design thinking and actually doing it in a room. And as we were doing it, they saw the value by doing. And then
yeah.
she was able to sell it to everybody else, not I. No, it
Yeah.
was me, but they were going to listen to the lady that, by the way, we won the Workday Innovation Award for that. And so they
Cool.
were like, hey, she's great. I'm like, I know. So start small. If the mindset is not clicking, give them an actual example. Like show them what it would be like with not doing that, and then what it would look like with the actual design thinking. And then the voice of the customer, right? And I was explaining, like we assume for people.
Mm,
So I
mm,
was doing an exercise with my leaders around what do you think people want? And then they told me. And then I'm like, actually, I went to ask them and they told me the opposite. And they were like, what? So mindset, putting the voice of the customer in that way, the fear of this is going to be a lot more work. But when I actually map for them, here's the number of meetings are things that we would have had before, and I wouldn't have known the outcome until the end, versus this is what we did now, and starting showing them the data. And then the last thing, because we were incrementally delivering, I showed them that sometimes we were trying to build a car, but people just wanted like a bicycle. So I
mm.
showed them that like we got halfway through it, and that was actually enough for some of the things. So it's just quick wins, small wins, champions, and testing something that you can show them in practice that benefits one good person that then can sing the praises of it for you. It's hard
Yeah.
with big established organizations. It's hard.
Yeah. And maybe if you can you actually dig a little bit more how you apply design thinking to that skills project, if you're able to share more, because I think a lot of companies are working on that, possibly. Can you share a little bit, like what exactly design thinking you did around that project?
Yeah, and this is where I'm not your most technical design thinking person. It was my team. So if I go a little high
Yeah,
level, that's why.
that's fine. I think most people understand high level anyway,
Yeah,
so that's fine.
but essentially we got in a room with just starting to question the assumptions, like why are we even doing this to begin with, right? Normally we get a project and we just do it. Here we
Mm,
started with like actual data. What is the actual problem? Is this the actual problem?
mm-hmm,
And then gathering voice of the employee, other information to begin with, so that we understood what is it that we're trying to solve for.
mm,
From there, we started involving actual employees and managers and other personas as to if we were to, and one of the things that we wanted to deliver, for example, was a talent marketplace, let's just
mm-hmm,
say. So in order to do that, what are some of the things that we would have to design for you to actually use it? Like if you were to hear and you, like we walk through the whole process, if you were to apply for this job or like this gig, what would that look like? And then what are the things around you that we would have to then ensure that we do? So ensure that you have enough capacity, ensure that your manager's aware, the compliance, all of these things that we needed to do. And then we actually started mapping it from the perspective of the employee, the manager, the person doing the hiring, and then the HR people trying to compensate at the end of the year for performance for it.
mm-hmm,
And so managing the different potential personas, if you were an entry level versus mid level versus executive, if you were in India versus France, and it can get overwhelming fast because it's a lot. But we picked just like one case that was like 60 to 70% of our population. We started there. We brought it to the minimum viable, like let's just do a pilot with a couple, like one line of business. And then we learned a lot, because all the assumptions that we thought were gonna be great, people are like, no, that sucked. So this is what I loved about it the most. We were able to then quickly pivot ask for input, and then ask people to give us better ideas as to how to design it better, and
Mhm.
iterating until we can just bring it out to the wider audience. It's actually very fun, and it questioned a lot of our assumptions and proved us wrong with the data.
Yeah.
But we were solving for two things. Because you're solving for like facts, like here's the problem, like your data, and then you're also solving for perception, and you have to manage both. How it makes people
Hmm.
feel, even if it's not true. So it's human, man.
And it's such a great case study of, and I see this over and over again, of how if you prototype, you can save so much effort and money,
So much.
by finding out at that point that it sucked, right?
Yes, yes.
Versus having mobilized the entire organization, having put all that trust capital in it, having put all the money in it, all the human resources in it, and then nobody wants it.
Yeah,
And
and
that's
then
business as usual for HR normally, right? That's how we do it
100%.
normally.
And change management, you spend all this time convincing people to
Yeah,
use something they don't want to do. But if they build it, we've
yeah,
done also hackathons as well for things like if they're building and they're part of the solution, they're more likely to like speak about it for you and want it to make it work. So,
yeah. Yeah, and that's a good segue into my next question. What's the impact you've noticed after having introduced design thinking to your organization and or the work you do?
so for us, and I cannot really differentiate between that and the agile. So to moving from projects to products and doing this design thinking and agile continuous improvement, a couple of things. The first one, and again, just for context, this was in my large 16,000 person, 24 country organization. We actually were able to double what we delivered, like on the same time. We moved so much faster. The satisfaction rates and the usability of the things that we delivered increase. People working on the solutioning were actually more engaged and felt more connected to the wider because of the cross collaboration, and they were learning new skills. And exactly what you said before. Uh, when I was doing projects, I looked at the data, and first of all, 80% of our projects ended in Q4, which is also
Wow.
when it's like the busiest time for HR. And by breaking it into chunks, we were able to not only manage it better, but prioritize continuously. So we were able to add value, not just at the individual deliverable, but as a portfolio to be like, okay, these individuals things people value, but now we have COVID and we have to do other stuff. Let's stop this and then design for something else quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it really helped us focus. It really helped us actually listen to the employee and very quickly cut our losses as well when something wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
out. Cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because we maintain a lot of dead weights that it it's like your junk drawer. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
clean your junk drawer, you don't have to waste mental capacity finding your keys.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I like that analogy.
And that's it, right? It's a lot of mental weight and maintenance of maintaining things. You don't consider the total cost of ownership until you start doing it this way. So
Yeah. Yeah, great. What's your favorite design thinking resource or hack?
hire really good people at it and talk to people like you. No,
Well, what are the backgrounds you're looking? I mean, I mean, half jokingly, when you say that, sort of backgrounds are you looking for when you say really good people? Is it actual designers that you're looking for outside of non-HR people, or what are you
oh,
looking
yeah.
for?
So what I did, as I said, on purpose, I hired people that had no HR experience at all because
Mm,
I also wanted them to push on me to think differently and think about our work differently. Because once you're
mm,
in there, you're a little bit like the horse, right? That's me now. I'm
mm,
like,
mm,
but I did for what we did, I had a person that was in learning and development that had really strong design thinking skills. So
mm,
I was like, hey, can I have 20% of your time for like this amount of time? Yeah.
mm,
Whereas others were full time on my job, and I hired within the PMO. I have project managers that all were good at different things. So I had one that was very specifically very good at design thinking. So he would help at the beginning, where others were more on the ongoing maintenance. So
mm,
yeah, I legitimately at the beginning, while we were not mature, I hired people that had those specific skills, either from learning or from their agile background. and then have them be the trainer and
Mm.
train a couple of other people. And I have my little champion, like network of champions, because even if you cannot afford a full-time job for it, you can have that as a hat for somebody and curate um, across the organization. And by the time we did our gigs, I was able to open a gig and then ask people who wants to come and do design thinking and all of the things that you complain about HR. Good news, you can help and come design it. And it really opened their eyes when they realized the legalities and all the complexity behind it. I'm like, yeah, we're not that dumb. It's just hard.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Everybody can come up with ideas, but then to actually see it through, test assumptions, see how it interacts with the larger system or not. I think it's such a good teaching mechanism, to your
You don't
point,
like it?
right?
Awesome. Exactly.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah,
You are right.
uh,
We don't know what we're doing. Come help us
right.
out. Here's
So
the
it's
here's
like
yeah.
another way of change management with the organization,
Yeah,
you
because
know?
yeah, and that
Mhm.
was me, by the way, before I came to HR. How hard can it be? And the PMO was my favorite because I implemented across all of it. I did the mergers and acquisition, the audits. Oh my goodness, the audits. You learn so much. And it really is. It's complex. Good job. HR professionals, you're amazing. Let me just say that.
Oh, ditto. Let's pat ourselves on the back on both backs,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, people hate on us,
I
but
think
we're
I
pretty
think
awesome.
we need to do that more often. I agree.
Yes.
So in summary, what tips do you have for those who want to get started using design thinking in the field of HR?
Yeah. I know it can be really overwhelming, but you can literally start with asking anybody in your organization if they have the skills and pick one little thing that you want to design, one, and then test it out. Ask ask your employees to vote. Like if you can have some list of ideas, just list them and then ask, and then you know have a little hackathon or start by designing your onboarding process or something that can provide has some good input from your employees and just test it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Right. So
Just
if you
get
start
up and
small, the risk is small as well. Yeah.
start small. I mean, I wouldn't do payroll. Just don't touch payroll. No, no. Mm-mm.
Don't
But,
experiment with payroll.
no, no, don't vibe code with payroll. Don't be no. Mm-mm.
Oh, that's
But
good advice.
yeah, I mean, for us, what one I love those gray area ones. Oh, so I wanted to have a team called transitions because it's not just onboarding or offboarding, right? It's also when you get promoted and demoted. I'm going to give you an example. When you apply for a job internally, let's say I didn't get it and I got declined, but my experience team was sending an email with, "How was your experience?" But it was more about the process. And I was like, "I hate the process. I didn't get this job. You suck." uh, Instead, can we design something that say, "Hey, I noticed that you applied a couple of times and you didn't get something. Here's a mentor that you can connect with.
Hmm.
Where are you in your career?" So that type of experience, so asking people where it's a critical moment in their job where you feel most vulnerable to gray areas and start there. Maternity
Hmm.
leave, all of those
Hmm.
things that maybe not that many people use, but you want to test it out. Those are great
Hmm.
ones to start with.
Great. Thank you. All right. And now we get to our final question, which is always a quote, a secret
Woo-hoo.
quote that I give you and ask you to react to it. Are you ready?
I am ready, I hope.
All right. So, quote, it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. Unquote. Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, you're not a humanist like me. I start with my gut, and then the data is like, "You're wrong," after I went through the whole process. So I guess I'm gonna have to say Sherlock Holmes is correct, but I don't know, man. Sometimes you gut knows. I can't help it. I'm such a human. But yes, so like I said earlier, there's data, so there's facts, and I know feelings are not facts, but perception is real for some people. So you have to make sure that you're doing both, but be aware of your own biases and be. I think for me, when someone taught me everything is a hypothesis, I stopped feeling like a personal attack when something didn't work. I was like, oh, we don't know. This is the thing that, and in order to do that, you have to have a culture that is going to let you fail fast. So have that psychological safety to do that and have a culture that that's really true. Because a lot of our leaders say, yeah, it's the data, but then the politics get in the way of the data. So yes, but in real life, in theory, we have to have real talk with our leaders and be like, yo, data doesn't match your politics. What do we do now?
Love that. That's the reality check to the
Yeah, yeah.
investigation that is Sherlock Holmes. Well, thank you so much. I learned so much again. Thanks for joining us on Talent Tales. I really appreciate it.
Of course, my absolute pleasure. Thank you.